Hi, everybody. I want to welcome you and thank you for coming to our Mental Health Awareness Day. And we've been having some activities throughout the day. The weather hasn't cooperated with us a lot, but we are grateful to be here. And we are going to have a panel discussion right now about mental health. One of the things that we have been wanting to focus on today is not just bringing awareness of the importance of mental health, not only talking about the fact that, everybody has mental health issues or concerns sometimes that maybe they need to take care of, but that some people really have dealt with major or significant mental health issues. And I've invited some of my friends here to come and share a little bit about their own mental health journey, to talk with them about the kinds of things that they have done and experienced in their own mental health experience. So I have a few staff people here and others who I've kind of come to know. One of the things a lot of people may not realize is that Lighthouse has one of the very few, if not the only, mental health support group in our community. And some of these folks have all been part of that in one way or the other. Those who work here, we're a strange place because one of the things that we sometimes hope is that you will have mental health issues that will make you uniquely qualified for a job at Lighthouse Church. So why don't we introduce ourselves quick, and can we just start by maybe sharing what kind of mental health issues you've dealt with or diagnosis, and do this just kind of quick, and then we'll come around with maybe the first question. So Aaron, you want to start?
Yeah, my name is Aaron. I struggle with addiction issues. I also am diagnosed with depression, anxiety, and complex PTSD.
All right.
I am Claire, and I sometimes feel like I got that buy one, get seven free card. But most significantly, I struggle with an eating disorder, bipolar disorder, and OCD.
My name is Jeremy, and I live with alcohol use disorder, substance use disorder, generalized anxiety disorder, social anxiety disorder, depression, and complex PTSD.
All right. Tim.
Wow, my name is Tim. I suffer from depression. I have been labeled having treatment-resistant depression, which means that I've been through most all treatments available and have still not gotten the relief that I need.
I'm Lisa, and I struggle with depression, anxiety. I've had a brain injury, and I'm sure we'll think of some more as we talk more.
All right. I don't know if you can hear on the live stream that we have some construction going on here at Lighthouse, so ignore the background noise, and it might be a little harder for all of you, but it is what it is. We're hoping to get our work done very soon. So I'm going to start with Tim, if that's okay.
That'd be fine.
You mentioned your battling of depression, and you are one of the few people, not the only, but one of the few people I have met for whom they have treatment-resistance depression. Chronic depression that sometimes is overwhelming and paralyzing, I know. And you've pretty much tried everything. Can you just talk about that, your mental health? What kind of symptoms do you experience when you're battling a difficult day in your depression? How often do they happen? Whatever you'd like to share with us about your own depression journey.
Sure. Yeah, I have kind of two things going on with me with my depression. It's a regular day-to-day depression, which is just a feeling of grief, of mourning, and then I have another aspect of it that I have these episodes. I call them episodes. That's what I call them. I don't know what the doctor wants to call them, but tremendous grief to break me down, and I will sit and cry for 2 to 5 hours, and that's something that has been perplexing my doctors. So I have that to deal with. But you learn to adapt. You learn to, when you feel something coming on, you really don't want to be around people. But it's just as well that I'm not when things like that happen. And it's taken a very big toll on my family. My wife, she has to sit and listen and look at this stuff, and I really would not want to be her. So she's just been really a big support to me, and that's kind of it on the covering on the family end. My wife has been a big support about that, and my son is more. He doesn't know 85% of what's actually going on with those type of symptoms. So
You have been a person of great resilience, and it's remarkable how you have continued to function and move forward in your life. So
yeah, you had mentioned that the only depression, anxiety group in the area, and I am, when I can, I do visit that, and that has helped me tremendously.
yeah.
And it has helped me get to know the people that go to church here too, and that's a good icebreaker for me to go to a group, and then you can come to church and maybe know three or four or five or six people. So
We have similar things going on,
Yeah.
yes. Jeremy, you got the microphone. Would you like to go next? What kind of mental health issues have you dealt with? You can mention them again, but how have they affected your life?
My trouble with mental health issues started it was 5th grade, because I remember going from elementary school to middle school and suddenly feeling very uncomfortable around people. I didn't know it at the time, but I had social anxiety disorder where with that you have this very irrational fear of social situations. You feel extremely high levels of self-consciousness, and it can be kind of hard to function in social situations, so it can be debilitating too. The way my mental health disorders affect me today is there's the uncomfortable feeling and the debilitation. And the uncomfortableness, especially with my anxiety, but also with depression, is feeling just very physically and mentally uncomfortable a lot of the time, and hard to relax. It just makes getting through the day a little more harder when you feel physically off, and that has been something that has improved immensely in recovery. And the other aspect, which has improved even more, is the debilitation of it. When I was struggling with sobering up, I remember being in a residential place, just terrified to even go to a meeting. I was so, without drugs and alcohol, I couldn't really function around people. And the addiction counselor recommended very small steps. And so I did that, and that's kind of what you do to address social anxiety disorder, is you use exposure, very small steps of exposure. And so that part, I was thinking, I have a lot of agency today to do, kind of live the life I want to live, to do things like I'm going to school, school, work, marriage, just things like doing this panel, wanting to teach myself a new thing like playing the piano. I have this agency that my mental health disorders, if they're not treated, does not allow me to have. Like when I have untreated anxiety and depression, I it's the same with alcoholism. I'm in kind of this box where I don't get to do things with my life because these things control my life. And especially with anxiety, the fears control my life. I'll decide not to do things because of the fears, which I experienced a lot starting in my teenage years and throughout my drinking career and in early sobriety.
Thank you, Jeremy. Lisa, why don't you go next? How has your mental health affected your life?
I've had mental health struggles with depression probably since my early 20s. And I would say most recently in the last few years, the hardest parts were I have more, when my depression is bad, I shut down inside and I isolate and I have very low self-worth and wonder why I'm even here. So I think that's probably the main manifestation of the depression. That really makes it hard to want to go out and do anything that's fun. Those are the overview.
How about your brain injury?
Wow, I hit my head on my car door, and you wouldn't think that would affect it, but I ended up in therapy for over 1.5 years because of it. I hit just the wrong spot, and it really forced me to isolate because I could not be around people. The noise was too much, too loud. I couldn't concentrate. I had to give up reading and doing art, which were my 2 coping skills. It was a very dark, long period of time. I don't think I was at church for 6-7 months at one point, so really lost out on that. And coming back was a little bit hard because, again, I had to kind of like, oh, okay, it's all right that it's a little bit louder and kind of get used to that again and reconnect and like find groups and stuff. So it was good to be back now, but it was kind of difficult, very difficult actually.
We've obviously got to know each other very well. I hope it's okay that I ask. There have been times when you've, in your work too, where your mental health has kind of become more powerful than what you're trying to work through, in a sense. And what are the effects when that happens? How do you recognize, or do you recognize that, things aren't well right now?
People around me notice it before I do. I tend to run straight forward for the wall, and some people will warn me that I'm heading for it, and I'll be like, no, I'm fine. But usually it means I stop taking good care of myself, in a sense that I don't eat well, or I don't sleep well. I get hyper-focused on things, so I don't do the things that I need to do, and then I kind of spiral out because I'm not taking care of the things that need to be done.
Okay, we're going to come back to some of that kind of stuff, so let's remember that. Thank you for sharing that. That was important. Claire, how has your mental health affected your life?
I think I've struggled with mental health for quite a bit longer than I actually quite realized that there was something wrong. And so I don't really know that I remember a time where my life wasn't affected by it. But I would say today, mostly I experience kind of the ups and downs that are associated with bipolar disorder. And sometimes, like others have mentioned, I don't always see the highs coming, the hypomanic part, but other people will pick up on it first. Oh, you're talking faster, you're doing more. How are you sleeping? And I'm like, well, I don't need that. And it's often a challenge in those moments to actually do what is good for my mental health, which is, sleeping, taking care of myself because you feel good for once. Whereas for the majority of the time, I would say I'm in more of that depressive state. And so it can be hard to then not crash after the bit of the hypomanic state. And I would also say that with my history of anorexia, I don't think a lot of people realize that, you have to eat to stay alive, obviously. And for a lot of people, it's just, that's what you do. It's a part of life. But for me, it is, you overanalyze every single thing. There's ritualistic aspects that I'm still trying to break, and it doesn't make sense, and I know that, and it's just that repetitive thought pattern that is very difficult to break out of.
Yeah, I've learned, as you know, a lot about eating disorders from you, and some of the journey that you continue to go through with that. But do you mind? Because I think that I think it's a hidden or not so hidden issue that a lot of people deal with, of eating disorders of one sort or another. It was life controlling for you, at least for a period of, it still controls your life in some ways, but not like it did. And you're kind of a miracle that you're here. Am I correct?
And in some ways, yes, there was definitely at the depths of it. I feared recovery, feared food, more than I feared death. And it came to the point where that was the desired outcome. I was tired of fighting, tired of just the constant battles, and just living in fear to the point where, not wanting to be here and going through that fight seemed like the desired outcome, I guess. And it came to the point where other people had to step in and kind of take the control away from me, because even with help, I was getting worse. The kind of power struggle, and I have control issues. And it did come to the point where, yep, the medical consequences of it had kind of gotten dire, and I could not make decisions that were healthy for me.
So really just quick, if we could, do we know, I know I don't, do we know the correlation, the relationship between your mental health issues and your eating disorder? I mean, do they go hand in hand? Are they two separate kinds of things? How do they, can you just talk about that for a second?
I can only speak personally, I guess, but I would guess that it's pretty common that mental health issues like depression or anxiety are very closely associated with behaviors people experience in eating disorders. I know when I get stressed, that's my one thing to control. When I'm depressed, then I don't even care what happens, and will not put in as much effort to my recovery as I probably should. And I know too that I have a tendency to be very obsessive about some things. And if I don't have, most of the time it's someone else calling me out on, hey, this doesn't look like it's normal, I can just go down the rabbit hole so easily and get pretty sucked in very fast and not even realize it.
When you're stressed or depressed, you don't eat. Others of us, when we're stressed or depressed, we overeat. And so those are kind of, I guess, two sides of the same coin in some ways. Is that correct?
I think so, yeah.
Yeah. All right, Aaron, last but not least here. So Aaron, how has your mental health affected your day-to-day life?
I would say that, gosh, that's, I've been thinking about that question this whole time, and gosh, that's such a hard question. In the last few years, it's definitely not as overbearing as it used to be, but I spent the better part of a decade really just in the depths of not only addiction, but a really deep-seated just really deep-seated mental health issues. I found myself a few different times in situations where like Claire had said, where the control was taken away from me because I could not make good decisions. I've been committed against my will on more than one occasion, and one thing that I was always, in each one of my stints for my mental health, I was often told that my mental health was a side effect of my addiction issues, and I felt like I could not get through to clinicians. I couldn't get through to the people that were supposed to be helping me. That I truly felt like my addiction issues were a side effect of my mental health, and that was I really just kind of repeated that cycle over and over again, and spent the better part of that decade really struggling with suicidal ideations, suicidal thoughts, suicidal tendencies and attempts, and like a lot of what Claire shared really resonated with me. It was I truly felt as though my just existence was a curse. I didn't want to do it anymore, and the last few years I've spent a lot of time working on my mental health, and in turn my addiction issues really kind of dried up fairly quickly. A few years ago, I didn't really realize that I had stopped really taking care of my mental health, and those addiction issues came up again in the form of abusing medical marijuana, and that brought me to a point where once again I lost control, and then that control was taken away from me. And I didn't realize that I had kind of fallen into this, if I just say it's not there and I don't pay attention to it, it will, like, I'll be okay. And it doesn't work like that, I came to find out. And that was just a little over 2 years ago now, and got back on top of my mental health again, and am doing my best to stay on top of it now.
Yeah, one of the things that you all have taught me and helped me understand is that these mental health issues are probably things that we will deal with all of our life, but that doesn't mean we can't improve and get better. Sometimes healing comes, but not always in the ways that we would like it to come. And I really, Aaron, I'm going to start with you with this next question, but I appreciate you bringing up the correlation between substance use issues and mental health, because I think that's huge for many of us. And I remember asking my addiction counselor at one time, was I depressed and burnt out first, and then I developed this addiction, or was I an addict and or an alcoholic and then started to get depressed? And she looked at me and she said, "Dale, it doesn't really matter. You're dealing with both now." And yet it's the kind of things that you said are things that people who've been there understand. Medical world kind of maybe still learning itself, but people who have mental health issues, substance use issues, they get exactly what you said. I think that's one of the powers of community and the recovery community. So what kinds of things have you done? Just name a few. We'll try to go through this one a little quicker. What kind of things have you done or do you do to address your mental health issues and to help yourself?
First and foremost, the biggest impact on my life has been acceptance of criticism. When something that I have come to figure out in my walk is that when I am in the wrong or I am not doing well, any form of criticism automatically feels like a personal attack. And the reality is that people can criticize you in a loving way. Actually, I would wager to say just about anybody that does criticize you is probably doing it in a loving way, and in my experience anyway. And if I in turn take that as a personal attack, I'm hurting absolutely nobody but myself.
Yeah.
That is the biggest thing, is just acceptance of criticism. And criticism is such like it's a bad word sometimes, you know. Criticism isn't necessarily a bad thing, which took me a long time to come to reckon with. Another just big thing for me has been community. I tend to isolate. I tend to take myself away from other people, take myself out of situations, and I've discovered in the last few years that there are several facets in which I can be surrounded by people who are similar to me or have similar struggles, similar issues. I can talk about these things and like people don't like get quiet or uncomfortable. Yeah, it's getting myself around people, accepting criticism, and really just making an effort to show up for myself and work on myself.
So one of the advantages of talking to people you know pretty well is you kind of know very specific questions to ask that can really get yes or no answers. Are you still working on regulating your sleep?
Yes.
Are you sure? Yes? Okay, good.
Yes. Well, I'm working on it.
Okay. Has that been helpful?
Yes, it has. So with that, it kind of like it goes in stints.
Yeah, okay.
But when
One of the things we can do for ourselves.
Yeah.
Yep.
When I'm on top of it, everything is a lot better.
Are you still on mental health meds?
No, I am not actually.
Okay.
That was something that over time, when I got really low, that was something that was very, very helpful to me. But over time, I was able to get off of those again.
Did the doctor help you get off of them?
Yes.
Thank you. All right. Lisa, can you answer the same question? What are some of the things you do to help your mental health?
Well, I do have a medical health team that helps me a lot. I forgot to mention I have had some medical history with cancer, so that also kind of affects my mental health at times.
Absolutely. Biologically, it's all interrelated, right?
Yeah, and so they also help me take medication for my depression and anxiety. That has been really helpful. With the brain injury,
Do
I
you
also...
take it
Sorry?
regularly?
Yes, sorry. Definitely,
Mm-hmm.
yeah, and if I don't, that's not... my body immediately will tell me within a day or two that I have not taken it, and I will physically get sick in my stomach, and that's probably the least of the side effects. Everyone would know. Also, having a brain injury and ADHD actually counteract each other and how you treat them. So my medical team was extremely helpful to explain that to me. With ADHD, if I don't get it done right now, it will never get done. And with a brain injury, if you don't rest, you'll never have the energy to get it done. So had to learn some new coping skills there. Attending groups has been a big one. Having supportive friends has been huge. They call me out on things, and some will often ask me also, have I eaten? That tends to be the first thing that goes when I hyperfocus, and that does affect how I think through things. Other coping, I think those are...
How's your sleep?
It's getting better. You did ask about sleep. I pretty much don't worry as much about what time I go to sleep, but I have consistently for 62 days now gotten up at 6 a.m., which is completely foreign for those who know me. I'm a night owl. but it has severely changed, or
That's an
drastically.
AM instead of PM, is
Yes,
what you're
exactly.
saying, yes.
Yeah, yes. In the past, I would have said, "Oh, it's easier to stay up until 6 a.m. than to get up at 6," and it's completely changed a lot of my thinking. I don't have to spend time wondering what I'm going to do, how I'm going to get out of bed, because that is my greatest challenge, is to get out of bed. But getting up with an alarm and saying, "No, you are going to get up." And I also have someone who also has been a long-term morning person who actually texts me at 6 a.m. also. So it's always nice to get some feedback from her. Just at least I'm not the only one up. I know there's a lot who get up early, but it's a new world for me. And I think, too, I tend to overthink things. That's a big part of my mental health. And so if I stay in bed or stay home even, that is really a not safe place for me, because I will either, if I'm home, I will get back in bed. So it's very limiting.
Excellent. Thank you. Thank you. Claire, you're excited about this part, aren't you? What kinds of things do you do to help your mental health or to help yourself?
Okay, didn't know you turned it off. I would say that the first thing that came to my mind actually was knowing the things knowing my limits on a lot of different things or areas. Specifically, the one that has made the possibly biggest impact is knowing that I am a person who will never be able to own a scale. Because of how obsessive it got. It was, dozens of times a day. And it would dictate every part of my day. Did I drink water? No. And having those types of things removed, knowing that when I go to the doctor, I will have to step on backwards and say, please don't tell me. And I think also finding safe people, people who get it, who are not going to judge, but who can also hold me accountable in some areas, and can push me to get additional help if it's needed. But finding that safe and supportive environment, which is what I found here, has been the biggest game changer, I think. Just knowing that I'm not alone in whatever I might be going through has been the most valuable thing I could ask for.
That's good. I remember you, I don't know if you even remember this, but I remember you telling me, it was something like, thank you for not trying to solve it or fix it for me in the conversation that we had. How's your sleep these days? I know that's an ongoing battle.
This is a constant fight, okay? I would say it's actually improved quite a bit since, as compared to other times. I've gone through many medication changes over the past years, trying to find something to help with sleep. And I think I'm finally at a pretty good spot. I usually just have the hardest time actually settling down at night. Usually that's when I'm like, this is my me time. I want to do all the things, But just to recognize that, no, I do need rest, and tomorrow's version of myself is going to regret this, and it will have an impact, has been something I have to constantly remind myself of, and then, weigh that decision of, are you going to stay up, or are you going to go to bed? It goes both ways.
I've also learned from you that a big difference between us is I usually can't wait until the next meal, and you dread them, and they are work. They're something you have to work at. Mm-hmm. Can you just talk about that and how you're doing with that?
This is something that it's also, like I mentioned earlier, kind of correlates with how my mental health is in general. So there are times when it's easier. I am not a person who really likes to put in any sort of effort to cooking for myself, which is odd because I love to bake and cook and whatever for other people, but I don't see the value in doing it for myself. I strictly am just like, okay, need nourishment to survive, but there are still a lot of times in my life where eating will evoke a fear of some sort, whether it's a new place or just something that's different. I will probably sound nuts to a lot of people when I say I have a whole list of fear foods that I've been having, to work through.
You also have safe foods.
Yes, and safe foods. And I will hyperfixate on those safe foods and will not deviate, but that's okay, No, it's maybe not the most normalized, but it feels routine for me. I know what's coming. I know it's okay, that I'll be okay. And so I can eat the same thing, breakfast, lunch, and dinner for 3 years straight, and it'll be okay. But it is usually a push to try and remind myself that, okay, we need a protein, a grain, a fat at this meal, and how do we make it a complete meal? And to decide whether or not I'm going to make the healthy decision or not.
So Tim, this is almost a harder question for you. You're treatment resistant. Maybe you can say a word about what that means in your depression. It means you've tried everything. But what kind of things have you done or do you do to help your mental health? Say a little word, though, about being treatment resistant.
Okay, treatment resistant. I have been on not all antidepressants, but all types of antidepressants. That is, we've run the course with that. I've had TMS with the magnetic. They put a magnet towards your brain in that treatment. I have had, in 2020, I had 20 ECT treatments, which is, for the lay person, shock treatments. I've done ketamine. So I've done all of these things, and they seem to be, they are not effective for me. I've been down this road of trying to look for the treatment that's gonna save me. Well, I need to adapt. My psychiatrist referred me to a psychologist, and she is right now helping me work through some of these things you sit and hope for all this stuff. Well, you might just have to live with this stuff. That's a big step. So I've been working on that. But the types of things that I do for my mental health, the meeting, I already mentioned the meeting that goes on here. That's been very helpful. When I can make it to church, I try to make it to church here. That's been very helpful. Kind of cut to the chase. I talked to Jeremy out in the hallway, and we hadn't talked for a while, and he said he was praying for me, and I said, you know what? I said, the other day, I told somebody that the only reason why I'm here is because people are praying for me. Well, Jeremy got to join the club, I guess. So, that is, I think, I really kind of believe that
We
the
do
only reason
too.
why I'm here is people are praying for me. Not only am I doing things, people around me are doing things to help me.
Yep. All right, Jeremy, grab a mic from one side or the other. What kinds of things do you do to help your mental health, or have you done?
I do quite a bit. I'm grateful that I have known Tim's story, and I know another person who has resistant treatment depression, and it's really a for the grace of God go I situation. That's for the most part, anxiety disorders and depression disorders are very treatable. And so, if you're struggling with these disorders, know that, for most people, a pretty high percentage, especially for anxiety disorders, which are the most common mental health disorders, they're very treatable. Not, I didn't say curable, but they're
Right.
treatable. They're often chronic conditions that you live with. I guess I do a lot of what would be the basics, kind of the first things that a therapist would recommend that you do, which is to do talk therapy. I take my meds and I exercise, and that goes a long way. And a couple other things that I'm going to add. One of them is I am fortunate to be an alcoholic who has been forced into recovery, because for 12-step programs like AA or NA, where you start out admitting you're powerless, it's not just about the drugs and alcohol. Like, you learn that there's a lot of things in your life that you're powerless over, and that this spiritual program can actually help you work through it. And so the things that I was doing for my alcoholism was also doing a lot to improve my mental health. And a big part of that was the spiritual aspect of relying on a higher power, coming to believe in a higher power, relying on a higher power, doing service, doing an inventory, doing amends, working with a sponsor, all of that stuff. So, and you don't have to be an addict or an alcoholic to do a 12-step meeting. I go to a meeting called Recovery is Anonymous, and people will introduce themselves by saying things like, I have anxiety disorders, I have depression and PTSD, I have OCD and addiction, because those 12 steps, the 12-step program really works. And another benefit of these community things for anxiety disorders is it just helps so much being around people who aren't judging you, who get you, to have that community. And one other thing I wanted to touch on that has helped me is one of the biggest lies I told myself, I think this was a good reason to keep drinking, was that I cannot have anxiety and be happy at the same time. As long as I have these mental health disorders, my life is a disaster. Might as well be drunk. And, that was something I had to get over in early, as much as my anxiety's improved, I still live with it. And so I learned I can have like a really productive life that I really love while having these mental health disorders, and they don't need to be getting rid of. I don't have to wait for them to be cured in order to be happy. It does put a dent in our happiness when we struggle with these things. It does make certain things more challenging. But just this level of acceptance that I have this thing, and a lot of people have things. Some people have chronic pain. A lot of people have these things. My thing is I live with anxiety disorders that can make life a little more challenging.
Thank you for mentioning Recovery Anonymous. Several of us here go to or have gone to RA, and there are 2 meetings on our properties that pretty much anyone is welcome to. And you can find that information on our website. But you're also articulate. I know that our time is going fast here. Can anybody give a quick answer to this question? In regards to your mental health, what is most difficult?
For me, mental health has led me to some significant struggles with my self-worth, and when you struggle with like anxiety, depression, it's like you constantly have this voice in the back of your mind just telling you that you're not worth it, and it's difficult when your innermost thoughts are just lying to you constantly. And it's really, really easy to listen to it and feed into it. And that's, for me, like that's probably the most difficult thing. That's what led me to, being willing to just throw my life away. Was just constantly hearing that broke me down, and really sent me to to a bad place for a long time. And, you know, it really isn't under my own power. I truly do feel as though it was God's grace that kept me alive throughout that period, because, you know, I did my best, and it still wasn't enough. I was far more resilient than I ever gave myself credit for, and more resilient than I could ever, I could have admitted to at the time. Yeah, so that's really what makes it the most difficult.
Anybody else? What's been the most difficult? Lisa, you have one?
I think you hit it on with what your brain is telling you. With depression, your focus becomes so small and so narrow that you don't let any good in your mind. And so I've actually been in a gratitude group, and that having texts from other women telling me how their life is changing because of their gratitude helped me to see that every day is not going to be the same, and I'm not going to be depressed all the time. So it really helped my mind to grow and see that change is possible. Because when my depression speaking, it says nothing will ever change, nothing will ever be good. And so fighting that lie in your head and finding other people who can speak truth to you helps me a lot too.
Excellent. Anybody else? Something that's been the most difficult that you would say?
I think sometimes I find it difficult to know that these are likely issues I will deal with for the rest of my life, and almost kind of grieving that in a way, that I don't feel like I know normalcy to some extent, and kind of wonder, you know, what would it be like if I didn't constantly worry? And then it also invokes a little bit of fear about the future as well. Worrying that, okay, well, what if this does get out of my control again? What if it gets bad again and I can't do anything about it? And, you know, the what ifs. And just, we don't know.
Yeah. Tim or Jeremy, have anything? No? All right. So, last question I'm going to ask today. You know, one of the things that we are hoping to do today, especially by live streaming this and preserving it and sharing it, and I think we'll try to get it on our own podcast. How have you experienced the consequences of stigma? We're trying to defeat some of the stigma of mental health issues. Have you experienced some consequences? And you know, you're pretty. So in this community, for us, I would say this is run-of-the-mill to be able to share all of this kind of stuff. But in the world, what you're doing is unique today. Getting together and sharing how difficult and dark some of your mental health struggles have been. So have you experienced the stigma, and how so? In your own life. Has anybody experienced what you would consider stigma with mental health?
I think just generally, maybe even not just me, but it seems to me that it kind of goes like this, that, well, so-and-so has heart problems or cancer or whatever physically, and I have depression. Well, what if I have to go into the hospital? Well, it's kind of like this. Oh, so-and-so, Tim, he's in the hospital again, you know. The people aren't there rushing up there to see me. But if you had a cancer or a heart condition or anything like that, people really would probably beat a path up to the hospital because, you know, they can see it, they can feel it, they can, you know what's going on. But so I don't think it gets quite the attention that you do when you're physically ailment.
Yeah. That was excellent. Yeah. Anybody else? Stigma? Lisa?
I think too, just even saying that I want help or getting help, it's breaking stigma because you're acknowledging that you do have mental struggles. I think for me, I didn't know you could go to a place and say you had depression, especially a church, because if you're a Christian, you have to be happy all the time is kind of the lie that I had told myself. So first saying that, yes, I do have a problem is breaking stigma, but then also getting the support that you need, reaching out. I think those are huge. So that's been helpful to me.
It's okay to say I need help.
Absolutely.
Absolutely.
Probably the hardest words we can say,
Yep.
but so needed.
Anybody else experience the stigma at all? Jeremy, go ahead.
I've been thinking about this question, and in a way, I almost feel guilty in that I haven't felt a lot, like I don't have a strong answer for that. And I say I feel guilty because I know a lot of people really deal with that. I think with my situation, I've been fortunate to, I've surrounded myself in communities where it's normal to speak of these things. I am really, I'm very open about it, and so I have found talking about my mental illness and substance abuse that, one, if you have a problem with it, if you reject me because of it, that's okay. You're not. If I wasn't hired because of that, I'd be like, I don't want to work for that company anyways. If you don't want to be my friend because I have anxiety disorder, I don't want to be friends with somebody who won't accept somebody with an anxiety disorder. But for the most part, I have found being open about it. I do this a lot, like in school and in communities where it's not, like when I talk about it with people in school and stuff like that, people are surprisingly accepting and open to learning about this stuff. And knock on wood, so far, my experience talking about it has just been a positive experience. But I know that's not always the case. I don't want it to sound like I'm dismissing the reality that addiction and mental health disorders are very highly stigmatized in a lot of environments, and very hard to bring up. But I do think it's possible to put yourself in environments where you get a lot more support and love and don't feel that you have to hide these aspects. I won't go further on that. But
Yeah, thank you. Claire and Aaron, do you want to share anything?
Just kind of thinking about it, I think the maybe judgments I've received in times past have often been due to maybe some misinformation or just not understanding quite the mental health challenges that I was going through at the time. I struggled a lot as a teenager with self-injury, self-harm, and with my eating disorder too. If I needed medical help, it was like you almost always got this type of reaction of, well, you're doing this to yourself. And it's like, yes, I am, but I don't have control over it. And it's not like someone would choose this type of life, you know? And I think too, I hear often, and this is actually something that Jenny and I were talking about this morning, kind of the misunderstanding of OCD is a lot of people think, oh, you're just a neat freak type of thing. And it's like, you know, people will say, I wish I was more like that. And I constantly just want to be like, I wish I didn't have this part. It's not just you're a clean freak or whatever. It develops in many different ways, and it just kind of takes control of your mind, running in circles and circles and circles until you're having panic attacks. And I feel like it's often misunderstood in our larger society.
Yeah, absolutely. Aaron?
A lot of what's been, like, a lot of the answers have been awesome already, but like one of the I feel like one of the hardest experiences I've had in stigma was actually in the rooms of recovery. I once spoke in a meeting, and I shared that I was struggling, and that I had made an appointment with my psychiatrist, and we were going to explore medications. And there were some people that a couple people that took it upon themselves to take me to the side and let me know of their disapproval. And You know, that was probably one of the most. It's not even probably. It was the most derailing conversations that I've ever had. Like as for from the aspect of my recovery. You know, it's not like I wanted to be struggling. It's not like I wasn't, med shopping. I was a couple years and some change, clean and sober, and realized that I probably needed a higher level of care at that point. And just to be kind of accosted and given not only unsolicited but very misinformed opinions on that subject, on a very personal subject that I chose to speak about, that was awful. And it was honestly one of the it was one of the things that led to my rationalization on abusing medical marijuana. It's like, well, I'm already not doing it right anyway, so. And yeah, that was one of the most powerful forms of stigma that I've felt, in my recovery. And yeah, I'm glad that I got out of that mindset that whole conversation put me in.
Thank you. Well, I thank you all for listening today and being part of this. Thank you for people who are joining us on live stream now, or who will be watching later or hearing us at later times. We want you to know that Lighthouse is a community where everyone is welcome. It's a come-as-you-are church, and there is a lot of transparency about the issues that we deal with. And we do our best to not judge, but to walk alongside, encourage, and help. So you're welcome here is what I want to share. And I want people to know what's yet coming today. Today is our Mental Health Awareness Day. I think there's going to be art stuff going on now at the House of Hope, am I correct?
Yes.
Just down the street at the House of Hope. At 4 o'clock on Wednesdays, including today, we will have our mental health support group. That will meet here, is the plan at this point. And then there will be a dinner with our partners across the street, the Methodist Church. We're going to be holding a dinner together where anyone is welcome to come and eat for free. And then there is a service tonight of healing, specifically for mental health at 6:30. That'll be about an hour long, and everyone is welcome at that, and we will have some time for prayer for healing as well during that service. So God bless. Thank you for coming and listening, part of it, and thank you all for being transparent and sharing your story with us.